Hello out there. Welcome to Explore Rioja Reds. It's very cold here in Madison today, and I think that these wines could not be more appropriate for the weather. So if you are joining us live from Madison, you have a happy Saturday night ahead of you. If you are joining us from somewhere else, hopefully they bring you joy, even if it's warm where you are. And I know that a lot of people have been accessing our classes from the recordings sometime in the future. So if you are watching this sometime in the future, I hope that they make you warm regardless of your weather. So hi, welcome. If you haven't already, and you are here joining us live, please fill out the poll. They're 2 quick questions. It just kind of helps me get my bearings to kind of see where everybody is in terms of their familiarity with Rioja. And I'm also asking for some feedback about what to do next. I have a couple wine classes scheduled, one next week and one the following week. And then I don't have November and December scheduled yet. With the holidays and all, I don't know how many I will be doing, but I am curious to kind of hear from folks. So do that, please. And what else? Chat it up. That's the best way to do these classes, is for you guys to type in comments throughout. So as we're tasting, please, let us know what you're smelling and tasting. If you have questions as we're going, chatterboxing, I love it. Shout it out. So here, let's dive in. It was requested to teach Rioja kind of early in the pandemic, coming off of the heels of Spanish Reds class, which was, I think I did that in May. So if you weren't able to join us back then, maybe go back and check that out, because it's like a nice fundamental class to build on. And in my head, I thought, yeah, I just want to do Rioja in the fall. So I'm a super seasonal drinker, so you're all at my, you all have to deal with that, the whims of what I want to drink, I guess. So, so it's time to kind of nerd out a little bit about Spain. I was trying to think of this, if this was my last international trip. It was not. I traveled to Italy last year. I went to Rioja 2 years ago. So I will get giddy as we go on. I will start to probably tell too many stories. So here we go. I'm going to try to rein it in and keep it together. Oh, and thank you for the compliments about my looks, my aesthetic choices today. I'm like channeling AOC today in the most flattering way. So, oh, that's so funny. So Kristen and Patty are mentioning that they found their notes from the Rioja class. October 26, 2017, I think, was the first time I ever taught Rioja class. And then I taught it again the following spring when I had gotten back from my trip. I think those were the notes I found. So it is Rioja time of year. So let's do it, guys. Oh, before we start, I do want to say that there's a mixed bag of what people have in terms of the wine. I think the majority of you, if you shopped at Table Wine, have the 3 wines that I'm going to be tasting. Some of you might have other wines, even if you shopped with us. When I order the wines, I'm looking at about 10 days out from class. And sign up for this class was really small then. So I didn't order very heavy. And then yesterday we got a whole lot of orders, and I'm super glad that you all are able to join us. And I'm really excited to have people here, but just a heads up that I'm not going to order like 3 cases of wine, particularly like of a Reserva, something like that. So I apologize if you don't have the wines that we're drinking. You have good Rioja in your hands no matter what. So now we can dive in. So just some fundamental stuff before we get going. If you want to pour yourself something because you just are too darn thirsty and you need something to drink, you want to pour yourself the Joven, which for, I believe, almost all of you will be the Blueberry or Leggy. Some of you, it might be the Aquitaine. So heads up on that. Okay, so some fundamental information about Rioja. In Spain, they have a classification system that is similar to classification systems elsewhere in the wine world, where wines, there's a designation as to the region that the wine comes from. In Spain, it's similar to Italy, where they have kind of a ranked designation. And there are only 2 regions in all of Spain that have reached the highest level of the classification system, which is DOCA, meaning that these 2 regions are so special and so unique. And the Spanish wine industry is so proud of these regions that they really want to kind of set them off and set them apart. So Rioja is one of those 2 regions. Priorat is the other. Interestingly, Priorat is actually the first of the DOCAs, which I find kind of fascinating, because if there is a Spanish wine region that people know, it's definitely Rioja. So neither here nor there. That's just kind of interesting. In Rioja, they do make whites, they make rosé, they even make sparkling, and they've created a separate designation for sparkling wine from Rioja. But about 85% of the wine in the region is red. So you can definitely explore Rioja and learn about the whites and the rosés, and but there's also just so much to learn about the reds that you can really start to dive in. Brief history is the wine has been made there for thousands of years, back to the time of Roman slaves. But it was really, Rioja is very similar to, to Southern California. It's kind of deserty. It's not kind of deserty. It's pretty deserty, but also fairly mountainous. So with a river kind of running through it. So the river is how wine is able to grow there, but wine is able to grow. My goodness, grapes are able to grow there. So it was really winemakers coming from Bordeaux in the 1800s that saw the potential of this region, and not just like, oh, it's warm and there's a river and we can grow grapes and just make like boring, insipid wine. Like, oh, this is really quite an interesting terrain. And so it was the Bordeaux winemakers that kind of brought their winemaking style. And then it was a little bit of a convergence of both Bordeaux winemakers and Burgundian winemakers. So there's definitely a very strong French influence to the wines of Rioja. Other thing of note is that every vintage is ranked by a control board. So there's this little bureaucratic group, and they decide if it's an excellent year, a very good year, a good year. And that will come up later when we talk about Reserva. So just kind of stick that in your back pocket. But that information is just, it's just so that you kind of, start to understand a little bit of the world there. So the geography of Rioja, it is in northern Spain. I'll show you a map in just a second. The Ebro River runs through the region, and it is divided into 3 subregions, and then there are little subregions within each of these. So the largest one is Rioja Baja, and it's off to the east. It's a little bit warmer there. The soil is like the riverbed soil, the alluvial soil. So what often that means is that the water drains, and it just tends to not be the most structured wines, but grapes do grow pretty readily there. And then the 2 regions that we're going to focus on are Rioja Alta and Rioja Alavesa. And I'll show you here on the map. They're very close to each other, and it sounds like it's like this very large place, but they're very close together. So you've got Alavesa here in the north and Rioja Alta here in the south. And on the northern side of Rioja Alavesa is the Sierra Cantabria Mountains. So even as you start to get into Rioja Alavesa, you're starting to enter the Basque country, and depending on who is showing you around, they might call themselves a Spaniard, or they might call themselves, you might say that they are Basque. I don't know what the adjectival form of Basque is. So anyway, you can really start to explore the differences between Rioja Baja, Rioja Alta, Rioja Alavesa. Early in 2019, they started allowing the different regions to be listed on the labels, and even these subregions. There are like 145 of them. That's a lot to learn. It's a lot. And everything that I've been reading with sommeliers, they're like, I'm not even going to try to learn it all right away. So I don't think that you need to know all of that. I think that you can start to see, do I like the wines from Rioja Alavesa, where we're in the mountains? the climate is a little bit cooler, those wines tend to have a little bit more acidity. Do I like the wines from Rioja Alta? It's lower, it's by the riverbed, it's still this clay soil, they tend to have a little bit more structure. Which do I like more? And kind of start to explore it that way. So that's why I mention it. I don't mean to overwhelm you with geographical stuff. One quick note that I like to really point out to folks. The main red varietal in Rioja is Tempranillo. Very commonly, people think that Rioja is the name of the grape. It is not. So the grape here is Tempranillo. Rioja is the place. Other grapes, other red grapes and white grapes are allowed in red wine. So Garnacha, Mazuelo, which is their name for Carignan, Graciano. The only reason that I bring this up is that for quite a while at Table Wine, we had a wine that was 100% Garnacha from Rioja, Baja. And it is legally allowed to say Rioja on it. So it did. We always kept it on a different shelf away from all of our Tempranillos from the Rioja region just to help delineate it so that people understood like, hey, this is like these other Garnachas, not these other Tempranillos. But just like a heads up, I don't think anybody's trying to pull a fast one on you, but you know, you run into the chance of being at a wine shop sometime and that, or a wine list sometime might, you know, somebody might not really know. So just like a heads up. But generally speaking, if somebody is knowledgeable about wine and they're talking to you about Rioja, the wines are going to be predominantly Tempranillo. So, all right, any questions before we dive into the first wine? Although some of you may have already jumped in. How is Garnacha different? Garnacha is the Spanish name for Grenache. And Amber, if you're curious, look at this, it's like it was meant to be. I'm teaching Grenache class in a few weeks on November 7th, I think is the date. It's 2 Saturdays from now. So if you really want to nerd out about Grenache, you can join us for that because this is like a masterclass of Tempranillo today. But the quick and dirty version of it is that Tempranillo is one of the fullest bodied red grapes with some of the most tannins that you come across in the red wine spectrum. Grenache kind of falls way more in the medium category. The flavor profile is different. The acidity, what foods it would pair with would be different. So it's a completely different beast, right? I mean, it's not quite as stark a difference as say like Pinot Noir and Cabernet Sauvignon, but it's pretty noticeable. So that's why I mentioned that. I didn't know that until Table Wine opened. I thought like, oh, if it says Rioja, it has to be Tempranillo, or at least predominantly Tempranillo, but that's not their laws. So that's why. Okay, cool. Any other questions? All right, we'll shout them out as we go. So regardless of what your Joven wine is, pour yourself some and I'll chat about it while you start tasting. So what to know here? So in Rioja, there's a classification system and it is all based on, we're getting this party started. It is all based on aging requirements. How long the wines are aged for. That is what makes Rioja so special. It's what makes it unique. Anywhere else compared to anywhere else in Spain, and really compared to anywhere else in the world. They have an aging regimen that is very structured, and it leads to consistency. And that's one of the reasons that they do it. And it leads to, kind of the emphasis, or I should say the, I don't know, like all the hubbub about Rioja is worth it when you start to kind of learn the classification system. So the lowest level, and I'm just talking about time-wise. So Pam, I poured the one that is pictured on the screen here, which is the Orlegui di Luberi. I believe that you probably got a different wine. I think that you probably got the Accutane. I can put that in there. Yeah, okay. So I'm getting there, guys. Hold up. So let's see. I'm all fluster down. Okay, so aging requirements. So the lowest level, and when I'm saying lowest, I don't ascribe quality. I am just talking about time-wise. This level used to be called Joven. It also used to just be called Rioja. Some people have called it Coseca. Coseca just is like it just means vintage. So you'll see the word Coseca, I think, on a couple different bottles. So when they decided last year in 2019 that they were going to do these 145 little subregions and they were going to start putting the label or the regions on the label, they also, in theory, made it easier by calling it generico. We haven't started to see wines yet with that designation on them because those rules just went into effect last year. So we haven't started to see them. So this is 2019. And nowhere on here does it say generico. So it's a little confusing. So hopefully hopefully they get that figured out. You will notice, you can go ahead and look at the back of all of your bottles. One nifty thing that they do in Rioja is that, make myself big here. It says Rioja on all of the bottles, right? But they have different colors for the different classification levels. So that level, that light green, is our generico or Joven or whatever you want to call it. Our red here is our Crianza, and then our like burgundy color is our Reserva, and then there's Grand Reserve after that. So sort of kind of maybe trying to make it easier on us, I think. So the deal with this level of the generico is that there are no aging requirements. The only requirement is the bottles cannot be released in the same year. The wine cannot be released in the same year in which the grapes were picked and be called this. So they at least want you to wait a little bit. So what is most common is that these wines are made, they're aged in stainless steel. They're not aged in oak. They could be aged in oak, but they don't have to be. So they are known for really ripe fruit flavors. And this wine word that means fleshiness, imagine that like when you bite into that plum that's a little too ripe and it just kind of like, is very sweet and juicy in your mouth, that actual feeling of that, that's kind of what wine people mean when we're talking about fleshiness. So Julie mentions that the color coding is really helpful. I agree with you, Julie, but I have since learned that because they are red and green colors, if you are colorblind, they don't actually help you. The Reserva says Reserva on it, but the other ones don't necessarily even say any words other than Rioja. So if you're colorblind, they don't help you. So, I guess you're out of luck on that regard. So the food pairing ideas listed here are for this specific wine, and that's true of all of the 3 wines that we're going to taste. So let's taste, guys. Let's taste. Tell me what you're smelling. It smells like yogurt, like blackberry, or like have I shared I'll share my yogurt story with you guys. So I learned a lot about wine working at the Steve's wine stores on the west side of town here. But also I went to wine tastings every week. And one of the tasting notes, I remember being really young, I was like in my early 20s, and one of the tasting notes was boysenberry Yoplait yogurt for this wine. And I thought like, oh my God, come on. Like that's just BS and blah, blah, blah. You just had yogurt and then you tasted the wine. And then and like, it is the power of suggestion, I know, but I tasted the wine and I was like, oh, that's exactly what that tastes like. Like exactly, I know exactly what you're talking about. And all these years later, I think I still know which wine that person was talking about way back when, because there's a specific wine that we carry that I'm like, oh yep, that tastes like boysenberry boysenberry yogurt. So to this wine, it smells like yogurt. It has a lovely mouthfeel. Yep, smell and taste match, right? I don't think this is a case of like, oh, it smells like this one thing and then it tastes like this over here. Blackberry, black cherry, I totally agree. I think like It has those black fruit flavors to it. It's pretty aromatic, I would also say, like, right? It's very fruit forward on the nose and on the palate, which I think is one thing I didn't mention is that this level of Rioja is very common in Spain and has been for a long time. It wasn't that common for it to get exported here to the US. We weren't seeing this level very much. So it can be a little bit of a whoa, like wake up call if you're used to what we're going to taste in a little while. And I think if you're not familiar with Rioja, just like remember that I said that and see later. But this is very fresh, right? It's very fresh. It's very fruity. It has lots of acidity. As I mentioned in the food pairing, and I can make that large again. Like this would be really lovely for Thanksgiving. It's great with charcuterie. It is like just absolutely knockout with, your sliced cured meats of whatever kind you want. If you're not afraid of the match of acidity and spice, like if you like a little spice, this is really great with chili, or perhaps you don't make your chili super spicy. The intention with this style, it's very, very much inspired by Beaujolais. So they actually use the same, and this isn't just true of blueberry. They use the same method kind of across the board at wineries throughout Rioja. For this level, they use what is called carbonic maceration, and I can put that in the notes or in the chat in case anybody's wondering. And that's a winemaking term where they put the it's basically like whole cluster with the stems and everything, and they crush everything together and they let it start to ferment, and it actually is what kind of gives the wine almost that little bit of tingliness or effervescence to it. It's not actual bubbles, but it has that little acidic tingle to it. Other thoughts as you guys are tasting? I know it's like it's big or it's not big, it's bright and fruity, right? It's not big. This is blueberry. So they are in Rioja Alavesa. So there you can kind of see in the background the Sierra Cantabrias. It's just absolutely stunning. I'm curious, have people traveled to Rioja? Has anybody out there been there? So, okay, not yet, only in this class. Hopefully next fall. I hope for you guys that next fall is, okay, Tim has been there. Awesome. Rioja, here's my plug for traveling to Rioja. Not that any of us need to be like encouraged to travel right now, because I think we all, I don't know how you guys all feel, but I've got wanderlust. Oh yeah, you didn't get to go because you were gonna go in June. I'm sorry, Heisley. Rioja is similar to Napa or Sonoma, where there are so many wineries in a small amount of space. So you really can do it easily in terms of like wine tasting. You can visit a lot of different places, and I had a fantastic time because I went to, I'm trying to remember, I think I went to five wineries in Rioja, maybe 6. And they all have very different styles, kind of what they emphasize is different. And so you can really start to fall in love with a particular winery or, particular ethos. For me, I mentioned earlier that Rioja Alavesa is part of the Basque Country, which I did not know. And when we were visiting a winery, Ostatu, which I think a lot of you might know their white or their rosé from the shop. Ostatu is in Alavesa, and I said something about, or one of us said something about being Spanish, and they were like, oh, we're Basque. And they were very clear about how deep their Basque roots grow. And then we came down out of the mountains and crossed the river and went to Conde de Hervés, which I know some of you know their wines from the shop as well. And Conde means count, and he is a count. And we were in his, castle, and he's amazing, and he's a wonderful, wonderful man. But he is very much Spanish, right? Like there was no yay Basque. So it's very interesting. There was a lot more political discussion when I went, in a good way, not in an exhausting way. Like here. Okay, enough of that. Any other thoughts about this wine? We got I got instant things, and then everybody now is just kind of quiet. Pleasant, happy, not happy. Anybody really not enjoying it? Yummy, lovely. Okay, great. I love it. That's great. Chill and enjoy the wine. I'm totally happy. I just want to make sure that people aren't like, ugh, God, it doesn't punch in the face like other Riojas do. Yes, I agree. Great. Thank you guys. Thank you for the chatting. Ellen says she loves how fruity it is. I agree. Two things that I want to mention about this. As you might imagine, this wine, right? This is a 2019. So these grapes were picked last fall. They were aged in stainless steel. They were bottled, and now they're already here. So that time that's not a very long time. Therefore, it's not that expensive to make it in the grand scheme of things. So this level of Rioja is often less expensive than the levels we're going to taste. If you like this, which a lot of you are telling me that you like it, awesome, and that's great. If you're like, this isn't what I have in mind when I pick up a Rioja, be mindful of the price thing. Like if you're saying, I want it to be under $15, but I want it to taste like Reserva, you might have to pick which thing is more important to you. You can get this flavor for that kind of price, but you probably can't get the Reserva flavor for that price. So there is definitely you have to figure it out for yourself. One other thing I will mention with that is that with the tariffs are very real, very, very real. So wines, some of you who have the Accutane, which I love, and I think is a really good wine, that wine is $18. It formerly would have been, unfortunately, it's new to Wisconsin, and I really like that wine a lot, and I still think it's great for the money, but that wine used to be significantly less expensive. And, the tariffs are very real. So that's just a heads up about that. So if you're shopping by price, be aware of what style you're going to probably end up with. Okay. All right. We're going to leave the Generico unless there are any lingering questions. I feel like there's a cat in my office. I apologize, everybody. I'm so sniffly all of a sudden. I don't know where that came from. I'm highly allergic to cats. If there were a cat in here, you would all know. It'd be very dangerous. All right, let's move on to Crianza. So Crianza is the level that most Americans are familiar with and up, I guess. This is kind of really where we all started to fall in love with Rioja. Technically, if I were pronouncing this correctly by Spanish standards, I would be lisping and I would say the Crianza. I choose not to. There are words in the wine world that I am happy to Americanize, and this is one of them. If you love it and you love the Castilian, lisp, by all means say Crianza. I'm not going to judge. So the deal with Crianza level is that there is a minimum of 2 years of aging, and one of those years has to be in oak. More can happen in oak. It can be 1 year in oak and 1 year in bottle. It could be 18 months in oak and 6 months in bottle. Whatever it is, it has to be at least 2 years. Often for this level, they are using used oak barrels. So the wines at a Crianza level tend to have Definitely more tannins than what we just had, but not very like overly aggressive tannins. The flavors and aromas of Crianza, they do vary. It definitely varies by winery. So you'll kind of have to get to know which wineries you like. But they do tend to lean a little bit more towards red fruit. And some of those kind of oak notes, vanilla, smoke, cinnamon, clove, kind of those baking spices. Kune has been around for a very long time. And they definitely go after what I call the American palate. They go, and not just I call it that, lots of people call it that. They go after a ripe fruit, vanilla, noticeable oak without being over the top. That's kind of like the Kune model. They really have kind of zeroed in on what it is that most Americans like to drink. So here we are. Smell and taste. This is a brand new vintage for me. I haven't had the 2016 yet. So this is my first time having it with you guys. There are those tannins, huh? Yeah. Yeah, here we go. It smells like Hook's 5-year. Is that because I said that you should have Hook's 5-year with it? Did I say, right, because I did say aged cheddar with this. Grilled sausages, burgers, all those things, like all those. I love that. I think that's so funny. Umami things that have a lot of umami are going to be super good with this. It definitely, I think at least, it smells fruitier than it tastes to me. Yeah, other people finding that? Like, I am pleasantly surprised by the amount of tannin and acidity, and I think that it's incredibly well balanced. You know, my mouth is dry from the tannins, but watering from the acidity, and I think it's really just kind of a nice interplay between those two. And there is some fruit there. It's not just like all, there have been past vintages. I'm going to be like super frank with you. There have been past vintages of this wine that have tasted too big on the vanilla for me, that have been a little like, I don't know about that, but this feels like it's like an incredibly well-balanced version. So that's great. 2016 was a good year. So maybe this is why we're getting to see kind of that nice acidity there. Actually, I'm going to make myself small in just a second. This is a picture of Kune. So Kune is located in the town of Haro, Haro. I will put that in the notes. And they are one of the largest wineries in the region. The other two wines that we are tasting are much smaller producers. I bring that up to say that this this wine is much more affordable than a lot of other. This winemaker has a better. Well, okay, hold on. All right, hold on. Let me finish. So, this wine is a little bit more affordable than a lot of other Crianzas that you're seeing in the market right now because of the tariffs and things. Kune is large and they are able to do that. This is kind of one of their entry-level wines. And so they are not, they don't necessarily have to charge a lot of money for this wine. So it is a really good, I think it's a really, really good value in terms of the money. It's not like, we'll talk about my trip to Piscina. I did not go to Lubery, but you know, some of the other places that I visited where it's like, you know, the count is making the wine and that's pretty much the show, you know, the people that he hires to pick the grapes and that's it. Kune is a much larger operation. If you have a chance to to travel to Rioja. I didn't get to go to Cune. I think it'd be kind of fascinating. I mean, to me, it's like, I don't know, it's like getting to go to Chateau Montelena if you go to Napa. Like, do it. You know, you're there, like, go see it. So I don't know. I don't know how y'all feel about it. I have to answer some chat questions here. So John is asking, should we do the 2015 next, the Alberti? John, I apologize. You are the one person who has that wine. There was a mix-up with information. And so the Alberti was, I thought the Alberti was Crianza. It's not, it is Reserva. So John, you are welcome to drink the Alberti now, whenever you would like. It's absolutely delicious, and it's a great wine. It's just also Reserva, and it's not different enough from the Piscina to have included it for everybody. But you win because you got a great wine. Comments about this winemaker has better photographer. This is the professional photograph from the Cune website. I'm going to go back in time here. So, oh, no, I went forward instead of going back. This picture is from Tom Loop, who some of you know. Tom is the person who sells me wine and took me to Spain. So, so that might be why the picture quality is different with the Blueberry picture and the Cune picture. Also, like, come on, the sun in ever the right place, right? All that good stuff. All right, I'm catching up with chat stuff. Ellen is saying that it's so heavy on the tannin you feel like you couldn't drink a lot of it at once. I think that's fair. The other thing that I will say, Ellen, is, well, two things. One, if the level of tannin is like, I'm not so sure about this, it would be really excellent with food, particularly if you eat red meat. It would be really great with that. That level of tannin holds up really lovely to meat, or aged cheeses are kind of like the other place that it goes. So, or you could decant it, let it breathe. If you don't have a decanter, you can pour it into a mason jar or something of that sort and just let it expose it to air, and the tannins would soften. So if it's a level of tannin that you're not digging on, you can see if that works for you. Do the tariffs affect the different levels differently? No, they don't, Brad. They are just crappy all over. They're just, but you know, it's one of those cases where, let's say something that cost, I'm trying to think of a really good example. Like, there are just certain price points for consumers that we all know. So like, you know, there's like this $20 threshold, right? For a lot of people, maybe not you, but a lot of people have like, I don't want to spend more than $19.99 on a bottle. And the wine now is above that threshold, right? Or like if it's just like Tuesday night and I just want like a Crianza, I don't want to have to spend $25 or $30. If I'm going to spend that, I'll just, you know, spend it on, you know, spend a little bit more and get the next level up. So that's at least what I've seen. All right, Kristen and Patty are saying they're getting some cherry, and there's something else on the nose and palate that I can't quite figure out. Almost like vanilla extract, like a little bit biting and strong. There is something, I agree with you. And like the bitingness, I think, is the acidity that I enjoy. And there's that kind of that tartness to the fruit here that is very different, I think, than the first wine that we were tasting. But there is something, it's almost, to me, it's almost smoke, but it's like not quite to the smoke level, but it's almost like, flint. Like it's almost like somebody's striking two rocks against each other, but it's not quite there. If anybody has their idea of what that kind of smell or flavor is, I'm game. I'm open to it. I feel like I might come back to it. Or at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to be like, oh, that's what it is. And then I'll shoot you an email. Hypothetically, would I pair this with chocolate? I would not pair this with chocolate. This level of tannin is going to make the chocolate taste more bitter. I don't enjoy that. I love chocolate and I love wine. I don't necessarily love them together. Even if you like bitter, I don't know why you do it. I just don't know. I don't know. I think that there are ways to pair wine with chocolate that are better than like, let's just go after this weird, it's just going to make the chocolate taste weird, quite honestly. So if you enjoy it, rock on, man. Don't think twice about what I just said. Helen's saying, is it minerality? Like almost, and it's almost, there's this tasting note that comes up more in Italian wine than Spanish wine, like balsamic. It's something that gets used to talk about Nebbiolo from Piedmont. And I feel like I'm almost on the cusp of that. Like there's just something there. And that's the oak aging. That's where this is kind of coming from. So whether I can pinpoint exactly what it is that I'm tasting or what Kristen and Patty are tasting, neither here nor there. That's kind of what's going on there. All right, other questions, thoughts? You're welcome to like chocolate and wine. That's great. Enjoy all the chocolate and wine that you want. How did these flavors become the American palate? It's not so much, Brad, that they became the American palate. It was more that like, that is what people here liked to drink in some form or another. Maybe it wasn't all, kind of this large group of people. And it kind of got named that as winemakers started to see a difference in what Americans liked versus what Europeans like versus what Australians like. Like Australians like a whole different bag. Robert Parker, and I think, you guys can see the points here. There's a reason that I don't ever talk about points. Robert Parker has a palate. He's a man. He has a palate. It's subjective, just like the rest of us. And when he started doing his scoring, lots of wineries went after his palate and like they figured out like, what does Robert Parker like? And so they started to make these wines that taste like Robert Parker wines, right? Like they started to taste like these high point wines. And that's kind of what's become known as the American palate. Now Robert Parker is, an industry, and there are lots of different people who taste for Robert Parker and put the points on things. But there is still this kind of like, they know what's going to get good points, and they know what's not, and they know, his points versus Stephen Tanzer's points versus whoever's points versus Molly's House of Wine points or whoever. So it's why I don't pay any mind to that stuff, but that is where kind of the history of this idea of like the American palate comes from. We like it bold. We like, we like fruit, we like booze, we like tannins, we like oak, we like it all. When I say we, I don't actually include myself in that group, but I mean we, the collective United States. All right, any questions beyond that about Crianza? I think the Kune is a really good example of what you can expect. It might not be exactly like that, but I think that that's kind of what you can kind of expect to get is some fruit, but more, definitely more noticeable tannin. If you're Ellen or like Ellen, you might be like, I don't think I want to drink that on its own. So I know that if somebody brings that over or I get that or whatever, I'm going to want to have food with it. Or, you're like, yeah, that's my jam. I want that all the time. Or you're like, I need to have chocolate with my tannic wine. Rock on. All right. Are we ready for Reserva? So feel free to pour yourself some. I'm going to start chatting a little bit about price. So one of the things with this class that was a little challenging for me, quite honestly, was to keep the price of the wines relatively table winey. My first stab at a lineup was all 3 wineries that I had visited 2 years ago because because I love them, because I love those people and I want to feature their wines. And it was very expensive. And it was a very like, ooh, I don't know about that, I don't know if I feel okay kind of setting that expectation when I'm the person who's constantly saying, you don't have to spend a lot of money to drink great wine. So I kind of rearranged things a little bit to try to feature wines that are a little bit more pocket friendly. So I bring that up to say Reserva is not cheap. And if you really are into it, that's just, it's not $15. But you can find ones that aren't, prohibitively expensive, at least for a special bottle. I think for most of us, depends on your budget, depends on your lifestyle. So the Reserva level, there are a couple of you out there who did not get this. And I do apologize. We just straight up ran out yesterday. So if you are interested after you listen to this, we will get more of this back on Wednesday because I do think that it's going to be something that I want to have around for the holiday. Holidays, plural. So the deal with Reserva level is that there's a minimum of 3 years of aging. And in this case, they do specify how long minimum it has to be in bottle. So at least 1 year in oak, which is the same as Crianza, but then at least 6 months in bottle. With Reserva, if you remember at the beginning, I said that there's a board who decides the vintages, and the quality of the vintages. Reservas can only be made when the board has decided that it's a very good or an exceptional vintage. So you can't just make a Reserva any old time you want to. It has to be, the conditions have to be just right, and the board has to decide that. Very commonly with Reservas, they are aged significantly longer than the minimum. Basically, if you're going to go to this trouble, you have this great year, you have this great vintage, you're going to really kind of pull out all the stops. Now, Grand Reservas are even a step above this, but Reservas are really kind of something special. So tannins are typically actually more prominent in Reservas, but the amount of aging, there is a little bit more acidity as well. So you'll notice that it's both things. And so often people describe Reservas as feeling less tannic than Crianzas because it's not as like in your face. It's a little bit more balanced. That amount of aging, the fruit is not ripe anymore, if you can kind of imagine it, right? So with our first friend, the Louberry or the Aquitaine, the fruit is, it's super ripe. I mean, literally the grapes themselves are ripe. The juice is right, like fresh. And then those fruit flavors are really fresh. And then we got to the Crianza and it was still like fresh fruit flavors. And here we're going to notice a little bit more dried fruit flavors. And that just comes from that amount of time in oak. And then more of these like oaky notes. Once we actually taste the wine, I'll tell you guys what my manager, she like couldn't get over it when we tasted this wine. She just kept like, oh my God, it tastes just like X. Food pairing ideas. This is so good. So good with lamb. I unfortunately am not able to eat lamb, but I have been told many, many times how great this wine is with lamb. And it's also really good with suckling pig. So it looks like Laura said that you can get suckling pig at Heritage. I threw it on there on the off chance that some of you are, I don't know, friends with a farmer or something like that. But suckling pig is baby pig. I used to work at a restaurant in Washington, D.C., where we served whole roasted suckling pig. When I visited Spain, that is what you eat. I feel like that's all we ate. We have jamon for, snack, tapas kind of things. And then there was like, here's some more suckling pig. So I put it on there because that is kind of what you should expect. So this is the Piscina. When I was there a couple of years ago, this is the one place that I was able to visit. And they are so very proud of their barrel room. So unlike the other slides, I'm showing you their barrels rather than their vineyards because they are so proud of their barrels. And it smells absolutely amazing in there. Do winemakers need to get? No, they are told. They are told so that they can know which parcels of land, you know, like, because for a reserve, you're not just going to like grab grapes from any old place. So no, they're told ahead of time. So if you guys know anything about My Taste in Rioja, there are two wineries that we are not talking about today. They are Lopez de Heredia and La Rioja Alta, and they are across the street from each other, very close to Cune. And we're not tasting them because of the price thing that I mentioned earlier. I wanted to be mindful of people's pocketbooks. But I bring it up because the owner of Piscina was the cellar master at La Rioja Alta for a couple of decades. And he really learned a lot about their program. Obviously, he ran it. He learned a lot about their style. And then he went and bought some vineyards and started his own winery in 1992. So it is relatively young. He does have a really strong history of winemaking in the region. And I think that like, I think Tim said he was there. I don't know if anybody else has been there. If you smell this wine, like to me, this is what Rioja, the actual place, smells like. What do you guys think? I'm curious. It's so significantly different from what we've been tasting. Yeah, loving it. All warm and fuzzy. Julie really likes it. What are you guys smelling? Because I like want to tell you what Jenna got obsessed with the other day, but I don't want to plant it too much. Also, I really like that you start out hacking love it. Hecking love it. You smell leather for sure. It's getting to the figs and raisins of Pedro Jimenez for sure. It makes me feel like an old man in the best possible way. So their Piscina's Crianza, which we always have in house, you know, as long as the supplier has it. Andy, who works at the shop, I think many of you know Andy of the long red hair. His staff pick for that is like, this wine, I don't even remember exactly what it says, but it's basically like, this wine is like curling up in a leather chair with a sweater that has leather patches on the elbows. And, you know, like he just like waxed on and on and on about like books and, you know, I'm in a library and there's a fire and everything. And that's like, I think the reserver just takes that and amps it up a little bit. Ellen says it's heavy, like you need a cigar. That's fair. Andy does know what's up. He does. All right. Well, nobody else is like shouting out too much. Nobody's near what Jenna freaked out about. So I'm kind of happy to be able to tell her, hey, look, other people had other things to say. She was like obsessed with coconut. She was like, it smells like coconut, which I don't disagree with. And that's that oak. You know, I can make this big again for a second. Like they really love their barrels and their oak, and they're so proud of it. And that leather and coconut, or vanilla or whatever it is, old books. I often think their wines smell like old books. I imagine myself in the Hogwarts library, and I feel like this is what that smells like. And Ellen, I'll be curious to see how you feel this wine changes as it opens up, because I think even just now that the next sip, it has so much, there's so much acidity to it that I do feel like it's a little bit lighter on the palate than you kind of expect it to be, or at least that I find it to be. So maybe that will be true for you over the course of your evening, or maybe you're like, no, thank you. This is heavier than I want. Oh, good. You're having blue cheese with this. So perfect. So perfect. I think that's just a great, absolutely great idea. So it's kind of fascinating. You like fresh fruit reds. I think that's fair. I think that's super fair. And I think that it's one of the things that is so great about getting to taste these Riojas side by side like this, to kind of figure out where your tastes lie. What do you want in a red wine? And what you want today versus what you want in February versus what you want in June, right? Like I think that they're different moods. And definitely considering, if you're eating or not. But I think that's super, super fair. Yeah. And the acid is there, but it is smoothed out by the, yes, for sure. The acid is not like the tingly acid of our first wine, right? It's just a little bit more there to like balance out the tannins and kind of keep it all in check. Which one of these would pair best with braised short ribs? I think the Kune for you all. I think that you guys like the tannin. Like I feel like you'd like the tannin. I think that is your choice. That's what you should do. I only hesitated because I don't think you can go wrong. That's the only reason that I hesitated, because I'm like, I think any of them will work. I think it'll just kind of work for different reasons. All right, we are getting close to time. I'm wondering if anybody has any questions about the classification system or just kind of about what to expect generally from Rioja. If you don't love all of these, leather, old book, saddle, coconut, all of those flavors, then you can kind of know that you want to stick to the lower levels of aging. And that helps you just kind of, not just within Rioja, obviously, it can help you around the world, while other places don't necessarily have this kind of aging program, and they don't necessarily list everything like that. When you start to see those kinds of notes on a wine, or you start to see like, oh, wines from this place tend to often, they really go heavy on the oak, then you'll kind of know that you don't care for that necessarily. All right, have I ever heard Rioja pronounced like Rioja? Rioja? No, I have not heard it pronounced like that. I've only heard it pronounced as Rioja. I'm curious. The Irish say it like that? What the hell? Yeah, Rioja. The Irish, come on, with your Chivons, your Ifas and stuff, come on. I say that as Molly Collins Grogan Moran. I'm allowed to harass Patty about his pronunciation. All right, let's see. Joke's on me. You're all going to try them as pairing. So I want to know what the preference was. I want follow-up here, guys. I want to know what goes best with braised short ribs. And we mentioned that there are some whites in Rioja. Yep. And we do have some in stock. We have Ostatu, which is one of the wineries that I visited in Rioja, Alavesa. I'm trying to think if we have any others. We have the same grape, but from a slightly different region. The main grape in Rioja is Viura for whites. And what you want to know about Viura is that it's not sweet or buttery, neither of those things. It's quite light. It tends to have like lemon or nuttiness to it. The Estatu does have a little bit rounder of a mouthfeel, and kind of has some really good acidity. Yes, I would definitely call it refreshing. The Estatu, I would have said up until 6 months ago, Estatu, like everybody loves Estatu. No matter who tries it, they're going to love it. And then I had a customer who was like, I don't ever want to have that wine again. So clearly isn't for everybody. But I do think that it is generally a crowd pleaser. So you can try the Estatu sometime. I can put that in the notes here. The Estatu Blanco. Oh, I'm getting it now. Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, I'm loving the notes here. Oh yeah, and the Estatu Rosé is super awesome, Amber. If you drink rosé, the Estatu Rosé is bananas. It's so delicious. It doesn't taste like bananas. It's just delicious. Okay, so we are coming up on time. I did want to, you guys did like a really good job of filling out the poll. I'm curious if I proved anybody wrong. If there was anybody out there, there were 2 people who said they were Rioja haters who, I'm curious if they're not Rioja haters anymore. And I also am seeing that people are very interested in a specific region within Italy or France. Is there anything, if you have a minute or 5 to stick around, is there any specific region within Italy or France that you are dying to know about? I'm all ears. Oh, you aren't haters anymore. I'm so glad. Was there a favorite, Terry? I'm wondering if there was like if there was one of the 3 that was a favorite. You liked the first and the third, not the second. Great. That's totally fair. Okay, that's awesome. Oh, I'm so glad. I always put that option on there because I'm like, ooh, I want to see what people, what are people upset about? Okay, so Italy, just any Italy classes or Southern coastal Italy. Okay. Because, you know, like if I give myself the option to teach French, guys, I'm going to probably take it. Oh, good. Oh, I'm so glad thank you for joining us for your first class. I'm so, so glad. Mountainous Italy or Bolognese parents, very specific. That is very specific. Loire Valley or Bordeaux, right? Okay, so some people are saying they love a French class. Okay, great. Well, then I'm great. We're all good. We can go both places. You know what, guys? It's going to be a long winter, and we're all going to need things to do. So that just sounds good to me. Thank you all so much. If you haven't already checked out our calendar, we do have, like I mentioned, we have a class on Tuesday that is about wines that taste and smell like apples. And we're going to be tasting those alongside apples, which is one of my favorite setups for class. And if you've never done one of those before, I really, really recommend that you join us for that or for one in the future. And then I do have Grenache class, as I mentioned. So we have Grenache class, and that'll be 3 different Grenaches from around the world. So rather than being region specific, it'll be grape specific. So you'll really kind of get to see the differences from where they come from. Okay, thank you so much for all the feedback, guys. Oh, Ellen, don't worry. We're going to have wine classes all winter long. How the hell else are we going to get through this, guys? All right, thank you all so much. If I don't see you on Tuesday, please vote. Please, from the bottom of my heart, please make sure that you vote. Please get your friends to vote. And we'll get through this all together, okay? All right. Love you guys. Take care.